Thanks for joining us once again on our live stream. Today, fancy terms, toxicology of aging. Now, how about this? How do we add years to your life? You know me, if you've listened to these shows or viewed them and watched them, this is all about certainly as well your eternity and your spiritual life. But what about our physical bodies? We have a family, we have children, we have a home, we have responsibilities, we have commitments. And we want to, I would hope, and if you're viewing this, learn how to take better care of yourself so that you age not just more gracefully with the trite phrases, but how do we slow down the aging process? Is that possible? How can I add years to my life? Oh, this is and sounds scamish. No scam here. Absolutely no scam. Literature, absolutely. Now, I've got boatloads once again, which I could do this for hours if you'd like for me to do that, which I don't want to do. But I'm going to pull a couple of those, and I'm going to show you how physical activity, the right foods, how you detoxify, how you can lengthen the telomeres on your DNA structures, how you can slow down the biologic, not chronologic. Today is the date. I'm 58 because that's how long I've been on this earth. Biologically, in a living system, can I change the process? And the answer to that is a resounding yes. How do I change the process of aging? Can I do it with some miracle nutrients? I don't know. That's a discussion for a future time. At the end of this broadcast, I'll talk about some specific nutrients. I think there are some things that are out there that are very novel in their approach. Some things that I've dabbled with and used, highly expensive, and I don't know that it's that I'm open to necessarily yet discussing that with you. We're looking for some novel compounds that I think truly at a cellular level slow down biologic aging, because you're going to see that through what I consume, through chemicals that I'm exposed to, through inflammation, through acidification, all of these components can do one thing: slow down the replication process of the cell, which encourages aging, reduce tumor suppressor type activity so that cancer becomes more inevitable, unfortunately. All of these components, and there's a lot of them, can either speed up, so I can abuse my body, not pay attention to what's going on. I can encourage the aging process, or certainly I can slow it down. Today, we're going to learn how to slow it down. Before we do that, I would always be remiss if I did not at least start out with some basic words of wisdom for you. And it says here in the Psalm, and this is David here, and it says that I will always obey your law forever and ever. David had a lot of issues with God. This was a man after God's heart. This was a man that had an incredible desire to serve in humility before God. But David grossly goes astray later in his life through pride, through arrogance, through dismissing then God in his life. His life begins to crumble. His personal life becomes a disaster. His children, a disaster. Why? Because David began to fall away from his first love, a desire for the Word of God. And it says here that I will walk about in freedom, for I have sought your precepts. He sought them out. I will speak of your statutes before kings. Here David is unashamed to speak the truth to anyone, and will not be put to shame. For I delight in your commands. Why? Commands, the Word of God, because I love them. My prayer for you is that God would put in my heart and in your heart a tremendous love for Him, that I may meditate on your decrees. Remember your word to your servant. See, God has made covenant with you and I. Remember your word to your servant, for you have given me hope. We need hope. I have studies here that show that people that are without hope, that are anxious, that are depressed, that have mood disorders, they don't live as long. When you lack hope, your spirit man is dead, your emotions are drained and debilitated. It affects your physical body, your biology, your chemistry. My comfort in my suffering We all suffer at some point in time in our lives, unfortunately. That's the truth. There's those that don't preach that, but it happens. I know I've had it happen in my life. I don't know about you. Your promise preserves my life. Preserving your life. Eternity, as we trust in Him, and a love for His Word, and a belief in what His Word says. And I believe this is also for our lives in the here and now, and I'll talk to you about that a little bit later out of the book of Proverbs. So be encouraged, be blessed today. Let's get into this. I'm going to talk to you at the beginning as a starting point, the toxicology of aging. So fancy terminology, toxicology of aging. Literally, all I want to tell you is that literally that how we age is a complex, if you will, interplay between genes and your environment. So the environment will take into it many different things: chemicals, inflammation, poor detox pathways, my cells becoming acidic. I mean, the list goes on. So I'm born with this. I can't change that. I can change generically an expression we call epigenetics, which is very possible. But for key today is we want to talk about this interplay. The literature is very strong in stating simply this, that the aging process at a cellular level, about 70% of it is this, environment. And again, for time's sake, I feel like I run on and babble, so I can't give you, you just got to trust me. I don't know what to say. I mean, I've done the research. I got literature everywhere. I can't give you every single thing. I'll try to give you bits and pieces. But 70%, you say, well, wait a minute, I don't understand that. You believe in God and the Bible and everybody dies, right? Yes, everybody does die. I'm going to die someday, and hopefully I am in His presence, as the book of Revelation says, that I'll be eating in the paradise, the God, paradise of God, from that tree of life. He's going to give me the right to. Now, I don't have a right to. He gives me the right to. But here's the key. What about this life that I live here now? What am I doing to it to speed it up, to damage it? Can I change the epigenetics, how genes are expressed? Because I know that the literature is strong in stating that 70% of the aging process is dictated to me by this. And so that's what we're going to zero in on. How would I support that? Well, I could have a 75-year-old man versus another 75-year-old man, A and B, and this patient is swimming, he's going to the gym, he walks his dog, he travels with his wife, he's in relatively good health, he's very active, his body weight is pretty good. And then I've got another 75-year-old guy, roughly, okay, same age, and he has degenerative joint diseases, he's maybe overweight, he's got heart disease, he's inactive, he's got heart failure, he's short of breath, he's very fatigued all the time. This individual is, his senescence, his aging process has been sped up. You say, well, it had to be just his genes. Remember, 70% of it's controlled by the environment. So what has this individual done? So this is not to put pressure on you. This is not to somehow, create a, well, if you came down with something, then it's all your fault. Because no. I want you to modify the modifiable characteristics in your life. If you follow this line of reasoning, you can add years to your life. And I don't care if you're 50, 60, or what. It's better if you're starting this at 30 or 40, but you can add years to your life. So I can have these two individuals, and they could be aging at markedly different processes. One guy is aging very quickly, patient B. Patient A, same age as not. Well, you say it's all your genes. No, it's about 20 to 30% genes. Bulk of it, the rest is 70% is environmental, and some issues we just don't understand. We just don't understand. All right, toxicology of aging. So let's just talk about that real quick. I'm going to try to cover this as quickly as I can. Heavy metals. Cadmium, lead, mercury, arsenic, all of these guys, heavy metals, speed up the aging process. They damage the cells. They toxify the cells. They damage the mitochondria. How do I get rid? I just quoted from an article early on the broadcast today that showed that cadmium, now they're even recognizing it in the medical community, that it not only implied and implicated in cardiovascular disease, heart disease, hardening of the arteries, renal damage, but it actually causes your cells to age more rapidly. So the mitochondria, the powerhouse of your cell where you generate all the energy, this is where your DNA and RNA are, and all of the transcription processes and all the replication processes. See, if I'm exposed to this junk, this nonsense, it'll damage this. It reduces replication of the cell. Tumor suppressor genes are literally diminished, and what happens is this cell can easily become damaged. This one cell times trillions, I've sped up the aging process. How do I know? Well, it's in foods, so why I'm going to tell you got to eat organic. So I have some tips, once again, at the end. I have some tips. Why it's important that you do what you do. How we detoxify. Certainly, then, once again, we'll cover that. Benzene. Folks that work around benzene and chemicals and environmental chemicals, they all speed up the aging process of your cells. I can't always not be around them, but I'm also going to say to you that what you do on an everyday basis can help you offload some of these guys. The role of selenium, the role of zinc, the role of buffered C ascorbate. All of these components will help you to, first of all, not be as susceptible to their influence so that you don't keep them and hold on to them. When you keep them and hold on to them, that's when they damage your cells. Organochlorines, pesticides, chemicals, PDBEs, PDEs, the metals that I've talked, phthalates, these air fresheners. If you use air fresheners, if you work for that company, I don't make any apologies, do not put them in your home, throw them away. Don't put them in your car. These air fresheners are loaded with chemicals. You inhale them, you have to detoxify them. Start using more biodegradable organic cleaning agents around your home, especially you women. It damages your thyroid, and we already know that pesticides and herbicides in foods are linked to endometriosis. I mean, do you realize that? Dioxins from years ago and pesticides, do you realize that we have gone through the roof with women with endometriosis? And I'm spelling that wrong. Which I do every week.
There's grace, brother.
There is total grace. Thank you, Jesus. Hope you're not offended. If you are, I can't make apologies for that either. Endometriosis. It's an overgrowth of tissue. I shouldn't say that. Where the endometrium, the lining of a woman's endometrium, that tissue begins to thicken. It gets behind the endometrium. It can migrate to other tissues. I believe it has an autoimmune component. I really do. I work with a lot of women with endometriosis. You know that it impairs fertility, diminishes the ability to become pregnant. There is tremendous pain and dysfunction around your cycles. Do you realize that it is keenly linked to pesticides? Pesticides and dioxins in laboratory animals, you can induce an endometriotic state almost every single time. And we don't pay any attention to this. It was, I can't avoid it. Yes, you can. You've got to start eating organic or locally grown or homegrown fruits and vegetables. Well, I can't afford it. Well, think about growing it yourself. Think about finding some farming aid guys around you locally in your area during the season. This can't be all or nothing. Well, I can't do that year round. I don't live in, it's neither are we. I'm from Pittsburgh. We live in Pittsburgh. I get that. But look at a reduction. The literature that I quoted earlier that showed that organically grown foods on average have 50% less heavy metal contaminants in them, and that a lifetime or a continuum of eating organically grown foods, they're higher in nutrient value, contrary to the nonsense that you see in the media that is such bogus information that many of you are receiving. It is lower in heavy metals. They've documented it. It's black and white. Research out of the university, Catholic University at Chile, has done it. I'm telling you that if you would begin to invest in the right foods, whole foods, locally grown, grow them yourself, organically grown, you diminish chemicals and exposure in your body. BPA, bisphenol A. I could go on for hours about this, and I would sound like some type of environmentalist, and I'm not. But BPA has been linked with infertility. Now, what does it do? How does it make us infertile? No, what it does is it damages cellular structures. You know, a sperm and an egg, we're talking one cell to another cell that are going to literally conjoin and become one. And any inefficiencies at a cellular level, and what does it? These environmental estrogen mimics, bisphenol A, that we've been consuming in plastics forever. This one's BPA free, by the way. It's important that you know these things, all right? So the toxicology of aging, it's a huge issue. What ages us? Okay, let's move over to that. What ages us? Well, Joe, time, right? Yeah, well, yeah, unfortunately, and time is flying. It does age us. But is there an aging process that takes place that we can document? Absolutely. Telomeres. These have to do with they're literally end caps on the end of our genetic material. As these little end caps on the end of our DNA material, as they shorten over time, as they become shorter, the cell is aging more rapidly. Isn't that what's supposed to? Yeah, unfortunately, that's what happens. I mean, I'm grayer now than I was 10 years ago. I've got more wrinkles, although I use some laser and I use some RX skin therapy and I use my antioxidants and I use C and I use transverse resveratrol. So this process occurs naturally, but take this to the bank. You can speed that up or you can slow it down. And in part here, how this happens, lack of vitamin D, lack of omegas, lack of essential fatty acids, toxicants, toxicology, chemicals, metals that are damaging, they're speeding up the aging process. Then when these telomeres become very short, once again, the cell dies. It speeds up the aging process. The DNA can become damaged. How does your DNA become damaged? Well, it's usually from a lack of micronutrients. Selenomethionine, folic acid, zinc, and there's more, but just lack of micronutrients. Why you need to take daily essentials, quality forms. Now we have changed that to the methyltetrahydra or quadrifolate, which is an absorbable form of folic acid. L-selenomethionine, a form of selenium that helps you not only raise glutathione, but helps to counteract metal toxicities. And then you got the right forms of zinc that can help offload and offset metals. Your repair mechanisms can become exceeded. See, your body has to repair. And at the end, I'll tie this together, but when our repair mechanisms are exceeded, we will age faster. And how do they become exceeded? Well, I can go right down the line. Poor sleep, a lot of bad fats in your diet, and I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here because I'm going to repeat this, but I want to cover this. A diet where I don't consume enough alkaline-forming vegetables and fruits, so I become more acidic. I got too many rancid, bad fats. I don't sleep, so I don't have repair mechanisms. This is just a few of it. Inflammation. Man, I tell you what, this is key here. The more whites, the more flours that are processed, the more sugars that I eat, the more processed foods. I tell you, you will produce the more bad fats, you will produce a tremendous amount of inflammation. When you produce inflammation, you are producing, and I am getting ahead of myself because this was for later, interleukin 8, interleukin 6, TNF alpha, all these inflammatory compounds in the body. And what do? They speed up the aging process. They overrule the repair mechanisms at a cellular level. And all that really means is your body is trying to repair, but there's damage that takes place every day, right? Your body, the next day, it's attempting to repair. And so this is an ongoing process. But then all of a sudden, if my repair mechanisms exceed my ability to repair, if my repair mechanisms are being exceeded by the trauma at a cellular level, this cell is going to go into what's called senescence, meaning an aging process. It'll age more rapidly. It slows down its metabolic processes. So when my body's trying to repair, nutrients don't toxify me, don't create a lot of inflammation at the cell, don't acidify me. My cells are trying to repair to keep vitality. When it exceeds metabolic activity begins to slow down. It reduces its replication, telomeres shorten, and the damage, the repair is being overrun by the trauma on a day-to-day basis. I think I got that wrong at some point and said that wrong, but I think you get the message. Okay, so we talked about interleukin 6, interleukin 8, TNF alpha, too much sugar. The other big thing here, boy, I tell you what. We talked about sugar, and we talked about that and bad fats, but I will tell you, lack of human growth hormone because of poor sleep, a huge amount of stress, not enough protein, not enough amino acids, and so on. And IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor 1, and human growth hormone. When you have this scenario start to take place, do you need this? Absolutely. We need human growth hormone because that's how, in essence, that's precursor to repair mechanisms, precursor to our hormones. When I start to produce too much insulin-like growth factor as a result of a diet that is high in sugar and high in bad fats and not enough antioxidants and not enough micronutrients and antioxidants, what happens is, especially the sugars and the fats, this insulin-like growth factor begins to be produced at a higher level. And what this becomes is a precursor to stimulating what we call epithelial growth, or stimulating bad growth of cells and tissue, which opens the door to cancer and all types of just degenerative disorders. We need that. We just don't need too much of it. We need a balance. So human growth hormone is diminished because of many mechanisms. TNF alpha is affected. Insulin-like growth factors, too much of it, bad thing. Okay. Let's talk about this. Ionizing radiation. Too much sun. We need sun. We just don't need too much of it. We need, blips of it, 20, 30 minutes. We don't need 4 and 5 and 6 hours at one time, and we burn and we damage the skin. Too many folks, many of you still smoke. Do you know that right now that there's believed to be 400 different chemicals in cigarettes? Now, occasionally, I will admit this, I have a cigar. I've admitted this. I mean, I do. I like to have a cigar. It's probably been 2 months since I've had one. It might be I have a cigar maybe once a month. And I shouldn't be doing that, quite honestly, really. But I do it occasionally. But many of you are smoking a pack to a pack and a half of cigarettes to 2 packs of cigarettes a day every single day. Every single day. Multiple. It's not just about the nicotine. Not just about the tar. There are so many chemicals. Did you know that you can document how it actually reduces capillary bed oxygenation to your tissues and how it speeds up the aging process in your skin and causes wrinkling at a much faster rate in those that smoke versus those that don't? So these are some obvious things. Okay, you can quit that. You should just be careful. You've got to have sun because you need vitamin D. You just don't need to have too much of it. But some of these other exposures to chemicals we can't always control. Poor diet, smoking, folks that have been exposed to chemotherapy and radiation, unfortunately it ages the body, contrary to what anybody tells you it does. I think we're going to get ready to go to a break here, and then we're going to come back. And when we come back, we're going to delve into some of the nutrients, some of the dietary aspects, and what nutrients, what foods should you be consuming, what supplements should you be taking, and what should you be doing in your life. You know this is my protocol. Number one, my typical protocol is Roman numeral 1, what's affecting us, what's damaging, what's the affect, right? Number 2, what can we do to change and alter this process? And then quickly at the end, we try to give a little bit of a summary to pull it all together. So you've got to know this part. You may not want to, but I feel to legitimize what I'm talking about, I have to give you this. What you can do to change that process. Can we elicit change? Yes, you can. Thirdly, what's the quick and the skinny? We're going to go to a break. Just a couple of minutes, I think 3 or 4 minutes. We come back. We'll wrap this. How can you add years to your life? Stay tuned. Thanks for being with us. Thanks for staying with us through that little break. I hope you enjoyed it. It gives my voice a rest, and hopefully it encourages you. And you might not be necessarily, quote unquote, a believer. And so I would just hope that you would just receive it in the spirit with which it's meant. I just believe that most of us need encouragement. We need to hear words of life. We need to hear not some phony promises and not necessarily what just this life has to offer us. We need to have the presence of God in our lives if truly we're to eat from that tree of life that I talked about at the beginning in the book of Revelation, number one. And number two, how do we help you to preserve? How do we help you to maintain the dynamics of this life, of this body? That's the goal today as well. Hey, don't forget, I want you to go to our website, many of you are there right now, askjoed.com. Make sure that you take a look periodically at some information about an upcoming event that we will have on the open house. It's coming up. I don't want to give the specific date because then I'll date this show, and if someone's watching it a year from now, 6 months from now, it sounds a little stupid. So you got to go to the website. Just know that we have an huge upcoming event. All right, it's October 18th, 2014, and it is going to be knockout. We're going to have a great time here. We've extended it. It'll go all afternoon. We'll have food here for you. We will be available to answer questions. You know, we always have some types of sales, a lot of specials running. Boom, if you're local. Live streaming. For those of you that are around the country, we're not leaving you out. We will live stream that event. You will at least have access to the same things that folks that will be here. It'll be even more organized. Dante will be emceeing it again. So we're going to have a blast with it. October 18th, make sure you're available. Okay, real life change. Can I slow down the aging process? You bet your bottom dollar. Maybe it's as much about slowing down. How should I say this? Maybe it's as much about realizing that if you start to make some changes, that what you're going to do is to slow down that inevitable process, which is inevitable. The 75-year-old, one is relatively healthy, he's active, he swims, he walks his dog. He's in relatively good health, his joints are in pretty decent shape. He's enjoying life, praise God. And then the other 75-year-old, well, you know, he just has bad genes. It might have been, but what did we do to speed up that process? That's what the focus is. We're going to age, but are we pushing the envelope? Are we speeding it up? Chronologic versus biologic aging, calendar versus real life aging in the body, or are we slowing it down? I want you to slow it down. Real life change. Where does it start? What you consume. You eat a diet, and I'm becoming redundant here, that is high in processed foods. You don't eat live foods or whole foods. You have no antioxidants, no colors, too much whites, too many processed, and I'll get into this, an acidic forming diet or an acid diet. What you are doing is you are damaging your chemistry at a cellular level. You are allowing the repair mechanisms to be overcome by the degradation of that cell and the breakdown of that cell. So if you do nothing else but make changes out of all these discussions today in your diet, you will take a huge step in slowing down the aging process. Obesity is a big check mark here, because with obesity, especially with visceral adiposity, central obesity, you are going to promote inflammation, which is total, right? It was part of our opening process. Inflammation damages and ages the cell. You will produce more insulin-like growth factor, which is too much of it is bad. You will diminish human growth hormone production. You will imbalance cortisol to DHEA ratios. You will imbalance estrogen to progesterone ratios in women and testosterone to estradiol ratios in men. This is an avalanche. This is a disaster waiting to happen. The more inflammation I produce, the more joint destruction I produce. The more inflammation I produce, the more fatty liver issues that I encounter. The more obese and the poorer I eat, the more the visceral fat around the internal organs, and I begin to develop that fatty liver concept, which impairs my body's ability to detoxify and clean up. Many folks, as they age, become frail because they've got low vitamin D, they do not eat enough protein, They eat too many comfort type foods, too many flours and grains and so on, and they diminish they become more frail. So frailty, lack of adequate nutrients and amino acids speeds up the damaging processes at a cellular level. An acidic forming diet, which would tie to this, which in essence is a lack of vegetables, a lack of fruits, a lack of minerals. What do minerals do? Minerals help to alkalinize your body or buffer your system. See, just a byproduct of cellular metabolism produces an acid residue. You have to be able to negate that, meaning that just cellular metabolism, what shall I say? It's like exhaust from your car. It produces an acidic nature to the cell. Well, I need to be able to buffer that or counteract that with what? Foods and micronutrients and minerals that come from the diet. Stress. This is huge. I have a lot of stress. I'm sure that you do. But I try to do things that counteract it. I take my sublingual DHEA. I do some adrenal essentials. I try to eat to counteract any of this acidification and inflammation, literally that's produced by stress as well. I try to take not only the nutrients and supplement well, but I work out and exercise. I haven't for the last 2 days. That's a no-no. I will today, Lord willing. I try to get adequate sleep. I use sleep essentials. I don't want anything impairing my sleep process via the stress, because with high stress, it impairs, once again, see how this all ties together? It impairs DHEA to cortisol ratios. It impairs female and male hormone. It produces inflammation, interleukin 10, interleukin 6, interleukin 8, TNF alpha, all those fancy things. Stress damages your system. Stress alone can speed up the whole aging process. You say, well, how do I change my wayward child? I don't know. You got to pray and intercede, and you can't be weary in well-doing, and you got to continue to hold fast to the covenant that God has made with you, and you need to continue to stay in prayer for your child. But ultimately, I believe in praising and worship and releasing our stresses, if you will, to Him by basking in His presence. Your life is changed. It may not change your circumstances, but it changes you in the midst of your circumstances. Exercise and physical activity is critical. I have, and I'm not going to go over them, British Journal of Medicine, 3,500 people show that physical activity reduced the likelihood of depression, dementia, and long-term degenerative health conditions, and showed that there was a greater likelihood in an active, see, it's not a 100%, but there was a much higher disposition to people that were regularly active, 7-fold improvement or reduction, should I say, in degenerative disorders and a healthier aging process. British Journal of Medicine, and I'm not real sure when that was done. I didn't have the date here. They followed them for about a 10-year span. Researchers show that you can rejuvenate aging immune cells. This comes from the University of College in London. 2 new studies that came out of their support of the biotechnology and biosciences, how you can help to enhance our immunity to disease through dietary intervention and help make an existing immune system and its effectiveness more effective, just by dietary interventions, what we've talked to you about. Exercise reverses the signs of aging. Public Library of Science, an online full-text, scientists in Canada show that twice-weekly sections of resistance training using even standard gym equipment, it reduces skeletal muscle aging, enhances mitochondrial function, literally the DNA code. Even exercise helps children that are under high levels of distress, no matter what their issue is and how their body balances. And I found this one interesting. I've always told you that metformin, glucophage, is not a bad drug for type 2 diabetes. Actually, if someone has it, that's the drug you want to be on. Interesting, over the last 5 to 8 years, there's more and more literature that shows that metformin almost has anti-aging properties. But you know, really, it's not that the drug has it. You know what it does? It's an insulin sensitizer. So you can do, Glucose Essentials that has French lilac in, by the way, which that drug is duplicated or patterned after. It's a plant source. But an insulin sensitizer means you utilize what foods that you consume and what it's turned into, glucose. You use it more efficiently. It doesn't cause what we call a glycation process, doesn't damage or prematurely cause a cellular cement, doesn't prematurely damage your cells. It's not that drug is somehow an anti-aging drug. It preserves the cells through improved glucose and insulin hookup and use. You can do that through exercise, through diet, right? Anxiety, jealousy, moodiness, holding aught in your heart in women, documented, Journal of Neurology. These women have higher rates of neurodegenerative diseases, Alzheimer's, dementia. And what is that? It's a rapid aging process of the brain. Why damaged DNA contributes to cancer and other age-related illnesses. I mean, I got stuff. I don't want to bore you with stuff. So let's get back here real quick. Exercise is critical to the aging process. If you have never had a DHEA cortisol with a saliva test, you need to. I don't care if you're 40, you're 50, you're 70. Because if your DHEA is low and your cortisol is high, if your DHEA is just low, you will have an enhanced aging process. Senescence is moving forward. Believe it or not, if you can just get more fiber into your diet, you've got to get more. If you get more fiber, you lower inflammation, you enhance intestinal functioning, you can reduce cardiovascular issues, you slow down blood sugar rises. Fiber could be one of the keys to slowing down the aging process. You reduce inflammation with nutrients, quality omega-800s. Turmeric has anti-aging types of properties to it. It really does. But your diet and key nutrients can reduce inflammation. Good bacteria, goodness gracious, probiotics, and a quality diet with a lot of soluble fiber. You'll make more good bacteria, reduce the amount of horrible foods in your diet. You will make more good bacteria, directly affects and enhances your immune system, and has a gut-brain link. Your neurochemistry is much better when we have good bacteria in our intestinal tracts. Critical. Detoxify. We've got to detoxify. You can't be constipated. You've got to eliminate toxins from your body, no question. But at a cellular level, we must detoxify. So periodically, you need to do one of our detox preps, whether it's Mediclear or Ultra Clear Plus. You've got to do detox essentials. You should be doing buffered C ascorbates on an ongoing basis. Do detox essentials twice a day before meals, once every 2 to 3 months for about 3 to 4 weeks. Enhance the detoxification process. If we do not detoxify and enhance the movement of metals and chemicals, so not only do you have to be careful of what how they're coming in, and we can't always control that because there are times that I can't control what I'm consuming per se. But I will tell you that if I enhance my micronutrients, so what does Detox Essentials have in it? Detox Essentials has some pretty key nutrients. It's got, N-acetylcysteine, it's got glycine, it's got lipotropic agents, it's got cystine and cysteine, and there's more. But all of this helps to enhance not only liver's detoxification, but your body's ability to detoxify in general. Foods help you to detoxify, okay? I mean, you eat things like onions, peppers, some garlic, cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower. See, the methionine and the amino acids in some of those foods, especially onions and garlic and peppers, helps you to detoxify. Methionine, it helps you, it's a sulfur-containing amino acid, helps your liver to detoxify. So not only are vegetables alkaline forming, but they aid your detox pathways. We know that broccoli, cauliflower enhances liver detox pathways. Asparagus is good for the liver, great for your kidneys. So foods, if you're not consuming olive oil and some deep cold water fish, if you're not consuming blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, if you're not consuming a lot of soluble fiber in vegetables, you're not eating yams, or foods that have a lot of orange and yellow in it. If you're not consuming tomatoes that have lycopenes, you're missing the boat. Those are some of the key ways that you begin to enhance at a cellular level. What about key supplementation? Let's roll over to that, and we're going to close. Resveratrol, the transform, I think is an amazing compound. So we have trans-resveratrol plus. I think you need to consider it. We have a combination prep that I recommend and that I use. I actually use both of these. Polyresveratrol that has trans-pterostilbene. It has turmeric extracts in it. It has some resveratrol. Amazing. D3. You've got to be on good forms of D3, absorbable forms of D3, because D3 has been shown to enhance telomeres. We talked a little bit about that at the beginning, right? The telomere lengthening. If you're not doing the omegas, that's a huge mistake, because that's a very natural way to lower inflammation in the body as well. Quality omegas, you need to be making sure that you eat plant sources of good meat. Throw some flaxseed in a smoothie, right? Throw some flaxseed in a smoothie. What about the buffered ascorbates? You have to. Collagen, detoxification. I mean, the list goes on about the ascorbates. By the way, folks that consume significant amounts of C have lower lead levels in their bloodstream, by the way. Lead's a horrible toxicant. Again, we talked about that at the beginning. So trans-resveratrol or polyresveratrol, good forms of D3, omega 800s, buffered C ascorbates, and if you're not doing something like the daily essentials, it's a huge mistake, because you have the right forms of selenium, you have the right forms of zinc, you have a lot of micronutrients that handle and help the whole detoxification process. I will tell you that at some point in time, I'm going to talk to you and maybe do a specific component regarding some other nutrients that I think are worth discussing. It's not. I didn't want to do it today because I didn't want to make you feel like I'm hucking you to nutrients. I didn't want that. But you need to understand that you can slow down the aging process. You can change that inevitable process. You can slow it down. Micronutrients, and we're going to talk about some other very, very unique, novel approaches in the future. Okay, have I been asked the question, what do I take if I'm in good health and want to start a regimen to stay healthy? What I would say to that is, I think there's a very, very fundamental component. You start doing these basic things. You are healthy, and what do I do? You're healthy, praise God, but you got to make sure that you still keep doing those basic things. If you're not physically active, let's do it. You could be healthy and still be overweight. We got to get your weight down. Fasting. So you want to know one of the ways that literally you can restart your immune system? And remember, your immune system is all about repair. It's about defense and repair. Do you know that literature more and more is showing that short periods of fasting, first of all, you should always break the fast, meaning that you should really not eat much after 7 or 8 o'clock until the next morning. So you have a nice, maybe 12, 11-hour period where you break the fast. That helps you to reset your leptin and ghrelin levels and your human growth hormone and all that good stuff. But periodic fasting, is not only good for the soul, it's good for your spirit. But the literature now is showing that your immune system actually is reset with periodic fasting. So I will tell you, there are some very, very key areas. You've got to get onto a quality regimen. I just think about what I use. I use, all the things we've talked about here. I use the polyresveratrol. I use the trans-resveratrol. I do a ton of the buffered C ascorbates. I do a little phosphatidylserine for my brain. I do a little bit of DMAE for the brain. There's just some good things that you can be doing. I do zinc in addition, my zinc essentials in addition to daily essentials because of the heavy metal issues. Lots of good things you can do supplementally. And we know that trans-resveratrol, D, and omegas have an impact on literally that cellular aging and telomere length. Well, I hope that you've been blessed by your time here today. Hey, I got another question. I have very, very low ranges of cortisol at all 4 times of my saliva testing. My DHEA came back. You are in not only just adrenal fatigue, you're in adrenal exhaustion. Is it safe for a person to supplement with DHEA at a stage 3 adrenal fatigue? Thank you. Robbie, you're welcome. Am I in front here or am I over here? Yes. If you've got 2 over a DHEA level, brother, you better be on sublingual forms of DHEA ASAP. I would also probably recommend you get on some pregnenolone. We use a sublingual form of pregnenolone to try as a precursor to boost those cortisol levels. Adrenal fatigue, that speeds up your aging process. Remember, we talked about DHEA, cortisol ratios. So let me go back and just encourage you today. Proverbs, blessed are those who find wisdom, those who gain understanding. She's more profitable than silver. See, I feel like there is a spiritual and a physical and a natural link to this. And I believe that, first of all, this is certainly talking about the wisdom of God because it'll help you in every area of your life and decision making. But I would also like to believe that as we impart wisdom unto you, that it helps you in a practical sense. God is a very practical God. Remember, David sought God's wisdom. It wasn't by accident that God defined it in the Bible, that David put on the ephod, a sign of submission and going his relationship with God, and prayed about what he should do. He sought the counsel of the Most High. You and I have the Holy Spirit to be able to reveal to us what God's will is for us in situations, and we need to seek his counsel. Blessed are those who find wisdom, but you got to seek after it. Those who gain understanding. She's more profitable than silver. It yields better returns than gold. It's more precious than rubies. Nothing you desire can compare with her. And long life is in her right hand. In her left hand are riches and honor. Long life. Riches and honor. Long life. See, when we seek the counsel and the wisdom of God, it gives you favor in all aspects of your life. Her ways are pleasant ways. All her paths are peace. The wisdom of God produces a peaceable approach in your life. This tree of life again, right? Genesis, Revelation, watch this. She is a tree of life to those who are willing to take hold of her, and those who hold her fast will be blessed. Don't just seek, God bless me, bless me. God, I surrender, I submit, I want your counsel. God, I want to make the right decisions. See, as we seek and take hold of his wisdom, the Bible says that it's just a manifestation, that favor, the provision, the protection, because it's God's covenant with us. And even though, as Jesus said in the book of Revelation, that even as he spoke to the churches, that as you go through suffering, even if you go through difficulties, but as you remain steadfast to me, and what my promises were, you'll take hold of the tree of life in the garden of paradise. We want to bless you in this life. We want you to be blessed for eternity as well. God bless you. Thanks for being with me. Add years to your life. I'll see you next time.